awesome video for you guys that is all about my color inspiration and where I get my ideas and my yarns and art and everything. So welcome, I am Lisa, the knitting artist, and this is my channel. So if you saw my last video for the colorway Frozen Summer Harvest, it was a little bit of a mess, I will admit. I didn't know what I was talking about for like half of it. It's been a long time since I've made these videos, so I am making this video directly after the other one, so hopefully this one will be a little bit smoother. Let's get started. So we are currently in the middle of talking about my series of paintings that was titled The Enchant Knit Forest, and all of these paintings had trees with knitted balls on them, little like knitted bonsai trees essentially, and they were also very large. Every painting I did was in the 40 by 50 size range, and these are the biggest paintings I had ever created. The original size inspiration came one night when I was in Houston, and I had seen some very large paintings that just spoke to me, and I knew that my paintings needed to be that big. If they were ever going to speak to anybody, they needed to be that big. So I rushed to the art supply store and bought stretcher bars to start making giant paintings, and the rest is kind of history. I have since gone back to making really smaller ones, partially because of space and partially because my subject matter lends itself better to smaller canvases. But this series was in the 40 by 50 inch range. I guess I'd show you the color. Okay, I guess I am still a mess. Anyway, this is the color. Sleeping Moon Ice. As you can see, it's kind of like the opposite of what Frozen Summer Harvest was. So Frozen Summer Harvest was a pale blues, pinks, purples with a little bit of green. This one has a lot of those same colors, but on the darker edge of the spectrum. There's, there's purple and blue and green, but they're all a little dark and gloomy. I actually kind of think of this as like a Halloween painting or a Halloween color in a sense because of the deep purples. So, when I was starting this painting, I was kind of in the same boat I was with Frozen Summer Harvest. I wasn't taking inspiration from any specific animated movie scene in any way. I just was painting scenes with trees, and I was sketching out a lot of ideas for scenes with trees. And so, if I can find it, I've got my sketchbook with me, and I had the pages bookmarked, and then I lost it. But I was drawing out sketches for ideas of compositions that had trees in them, but they really didn't come from any specific movie. I mean, I think I wrote the words Aladdin up here, so yeah, there was a couple of ideas that came from Aladdin, but nothing really came from any, like, the final compositions didn't come from anywhere specific. So Sleeping Moon Ice, like I said, was kind of the opposite of Frozen Summer Harvest. When I went to paint it, I knew that I wanted to use the darker colors, and I just wanted to try something that was very, like, spooky. And I also knew that I wanted to be vertical. So I remember arranging things randomly, just kind of sketching it out and then playing with the... trying to pull up an image. Playing with the composition, and also still wanting to kind of play with that whole floating island concept that I had played with in the last few paintings, which was, the idea that the trees are in a space and maybe there's some knitted balls floating around next to them in some water that's next to them. So they were kind of on their own little islands, and in this case specifically, the tree kind of feels like it's reaching out and, just going for grass. So one of my favorite parts of this whole painting is actually the very deep purple that's in the top right corner. I love that area. That purple is one of my favorite colors, and it kind of comes up here for sure. So this canvas is huge, and I remember stretching it and really struggling to stretch it, and But I remember really liking this painting. This was the last big painting I made during my Navasota artist residency before I had to move and, you know, go back to the real world. So I just remember really wanting to push myself and do something totally... I just remember, yeah, that's what I remember. Because there was no real inspiration that came from any Disney movies, I'm actually finding it hard to find things to talk to y'all about. So I think we're going to pause there. I'm going to take you over to my table with the yarn spread out, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the colors and the yarn. Yeah. So this is Sleeping Moon Ice all laid out. And here's the little diagram that I used. I will be the first to admit that this is actually a very poor version of this colorway. I probably should just take it out of my inventory because the navy, what's supposed to be navy, actually broke really badly because of the heat and kind of became to pale blue. So this is supposed to be navy. But if we're looking at the painting, which I put up on the screen, and we are starting in this corner. This corner is the right corner of the painting. So we start with the purple, that deep purple sky. Again, this should be navy blue. It is navy blue in some of my other skeins. And then as we work down, we get to that island, which is actually the lighter colors. And that's where the green comes in. And then we get back down into the water, which is all dark. And then we get to that big knitted form that is over in the corner, as well as kind of part of the island, I think, is coming in with this green. But that big knitted form that's over in the corner has got the green in it too. And then we work our way back into the sky, where we fade from the light back into that deep, deep dark purple. So this is actually a pretty simple, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot to dye, but it's actually a pretty basic, you know, I pretty much took the painting and replicated it spot by spot on the yarn. Yeah. So I'm going to put up a time-lapse video. I know I've got one somewhere. And then we'll go back and we will talk about the different yarn types. Okay, I hope you guys really liked seeing how my colors play out on the yarn and comparing them to the painting. So back to the yarn. This colorway I offer on my light base, which is my 2-ply superwash merino fingering, 400 yards. Every color I offer is on this base. I love this base. It's a great workhorse base for anything fingering weight. I do the normal style and the paint water style. The paint water speckle, as it's labeled on my website, actually is more popular in a lot of my colors than the normal style. Interesting, right? And then I do have a couple of tonals. Neon Moon. I love this color. I haven't made anything in it, and I actually haven't sold a whole lot of it because it really takes the right person to buy this color, but I love this color. And then this purple is also one of my favorites. It's called Moonberry, and I've sold quite a bit of this color. So as you can see, they really do play well with each other. I also offer this colorway on my sock base, which is a little bit paler and it's smoother because it's a 4-ply and it has nylon. I have both versions on my DK base. And for the time being, once the DK is gone, it's gone. My yarn source is struggling to keep up with inventory. I will get more DK when I can, but if you want this and you're watching this video, you better check and see if it's still here. And then I do also offer it on the Silky Single. And I really like the Silky Single. It's got a nice sheen to it. And the color is a little bit paler because of the silk content, but I just really like what happens with the silk. So if you're wanting ideas for things to knit with this yarn, I have a sock sample. And now please note that I have worn these socks and washed these socks. So here's an idea of what it looks like after it's been washed a few times. I made this pair of socks as a sample, and I actually also kind of designed this pattern. I called it Pop Socks because if you look close enough, everywhere there's green, I purled. And the idea behind this concept was that you pick a color that only appears occasionally. Whenever you get to that color, you purl instead of knit. And so I called them Pop Socks, Color Pops. That pattern is available for free on my Ravelry account, which is Lisa247. It's really just a modification to a normal sock. You know, you get a normal vanilla sock and you change one thing on it. I also spent a good portion of last summer knitting this shawl. It got crazy at the end, y'all. I did not want to knit this thing, okay? Because all of these yarn overs are on the purl side. And if you know anything about knitting, you know that purling is awkward. And if you know anything about purling, you know that purl two together is awful, okay? So I love this pattern. I used all three. I used the Moonberry. I faded it into the normal variegated, and then I faded that into the speckle. It's hard to tell here that there's a difference between the variegated and the speckle, but there is. I added a picot edging that was not originally in the pattern, but it's super easy. The pattern is called Domino Doublet. It's by Mira Cole from Ba Yarns. It was originally designed for Ba Yarns, but when I saw it, I knew it would look great with a 3-color set of mine. And so I knitted it. It's a half circle. You start at the top, you work your way down. And it's big enough, you know, to wrap around you a couple times. So I don't wear this one that much because it is so big and because it's awkward, but it's a beautiful sample. I have sold lots of yarn because of this sample, and I highly recommend it, especially with this pairing of yarn. So I hope that y'all have enjoyed learning a little bit more about this colorway today. I wish I had more to tell y'all. I feel like my inspiration is dried up sometimes. But I do hope that y'all enjoyed this, and happy knitting!